Hi, I'm Josh, owner and instructor here at Eastside Music Academy, and the title of today's video is Unlocking Your Musical Creativity. And we're going to be talking about improvisation. And improvisation simply means to create on the spot. No sheet music in front of you necessarily, no prior practice of a particular passage. You're just taking what's in your head, ideas, musical ideas, melodies, harmonies, rhythm, all those different elements, and applying them, playing them on your instrument. Maybe you're already doing this in your musical journey, or maybe you have no idea what I'm talking about. But the goal of these videos is to help give you the tools necessary to create music. And so we're going to be talking about a couple of those tools in today's video, but this is actually going to be a series in which we're going to delve into a lot of music theory and be talking a lot about the tools that you're going to need to improvise. Okay, let's get started. Talk about tool number one. Now, music is made up of a series of notes. Okay, they can be played in different orders, they can start on different notes, all those kinds of things. And when we talk about series of notes, really what we're referring to are scales. Okay, and scales are the foundation for improvising. Okay, it's the palette that we're working from. Okay, now there are all kinds of different scales in music that relate to different genres like rock and jazz and country and stuff like that. But probably the most widely known and widely used scale is what we call our major scale. And our basic major scale is comprised of 7 notes, or 8 if you include the note that's repeating there at the top. But 7 notes, ascending and descending. And so what I'm going to do is just play an example for you of a major scale on the piano. Now, major refers to kind of a positive, happy sound. We'll talk about the theory behind it in upcoming videos. But for right now, that's all you really needed to know. Okay? And for some of you, this may be old hat. But what I'm going to do is just play a basic major scale starting on C. Okay, we would call that the C major scale because we're starting on the C note. All right. Well, this is what we call the C major scale. And like I said before, we call it the C major scale because the first note or the first degree of the scale is C. Okay? And for this example, I'm just playing or starting on middle C. And a major scale has kind of a happy, positive sound to it, as you'll hear. But here's the C major scale. There's our 7th note, okay, and then we just end on our 8th note, which is actually the same note as what we started with, C to C, okay. So essentially, there's these 7 notes, and then we end on C again, okay. That's what we call a C major scale, and it kind of has a real happy, positive sound, okay. Now, let me give you an example of just a song that uses a C major scale, just a real simple song, like Twinkle Twinkle, just a common children's song using notes from the major scale. Okay? That is a C major scale. Now, in the next portion of the video, we're going to be talking about key signatures. And we're going to talk about how key signatures relate. That's kind of the next step in understanding how scales relate to each other and how that ultimately relates to improvisation. Well, we've just talked about scales, and I want to take that concept a step further and talk about something else that closely relates to scales, very integrated, very tied into it. And that is the idea of what we call key signatures. Now, when I sign my name, okay, it's going to look different, obviously because it's different letters, and just the style of me signing my name is going to look different than, say, your signature or somebody else's. So key signatures have a different personality, a different signature to them. Okay, let me explain. In the previous part of the video, I played a C major scale, okay? And we call it the C major scale because we're starting on the C note, all right? It still has a major sound. Now I can take that same major scale and I can start on the G note, okay? Now because I'm using a different series of notes in different order, it's going to sound a little bit different, okay? It's going to have a different signature or a different personality. Now this opens up a whole new range of possibilities in terms of improvising, because we're not stuck in one series of notes. We're not stuck with the C major scale, okay? In fact, in all we have 12, okay? 12 scales, different scales that we're going to be getting into. One of the best ways to help kind of visually see all of these different key signatures is using something called the circle of fifths. Now I'm going to get into some more of the advanced theory of it later on, but as long as you understand the idea of sharps and flats in music, this will make perfect sense. And if you don't, we're going to be talking about that too. But I'm going to be putting up the circle of fifths here on the screen as I'm talking, so that you can see what I'm talking about and referring to. And I would highly encourage you to go ahead and print out, just type in circle of fifths in Google and print out a diagram for yourself so that you can follow along. So we're going to be talking about just a couple key signatures from that circle. We're not going to be going over the whole thing today simply because we don't have the time, but it's very involved. We're going to be talking about two key signatures. Okay, so going back to what I talked about, remember that a key signature, in terms of the major key signature, they're different because they start on different notes and they have a different personality or signature to them. Okay, so let's take a look at the circle of fifths diagram. You notice right at the top we have C major, okay, and I talked about that. Now in this particular key signature, we don't have any sharps or flats that we need to play, okay? All that means is that I'm playing all white keys, okay? Now if I'm playing in the key of C, sometimes we'll add sharps or flats in, but just in terms of the basic major scale, we won't have any sharps or flats in that, okay? Now, if we move to our right, we go to the key of G. Now we call it the key of G because the G note is now our first scale degree or our first note, okay? Now in this particular key signature, if you look down here on the treble clef, right there, you're going to notice that there is a sharp on the line there that F sits on. Okay, there's an F sharp. All that means is that we're going to have a black key in this key signature. So we're going to take our F note and we're going to sharp it. Okay, we're going to move it up to F sharp. All right. So we can kind of see that in the circle of fifths, and we're going to be focusing on those two. Now we're going to cut away here to the piano. I'm going to play the C major scale, and then I'm going to go and play the G major scale, and you'll be able to hear and see the difference. Okay, so here is an example again of the C major scale. Okay, C being my first note. Okay, thus the calling it the C major scale, and here it is. Okay, My job is not to get into the fingering of the scale. I'm just showing you the fact that it's a C major scale. Now we're going to go to the key of G, or the G major scale. Okay, it's still going to have that major happy sound, but my first note is actually going to be G rather than C. Okay, so here's my G right here. Okay. All right. I mentioned before that in the key of G we have a black key that we're playing. Okay, we have what we call 1 sharp. All right, and that is going to be right here. Okay, so instead of playing a normal F, we're going to sharp it. Okay, we're just going to move right up to the black key here, and we're going to play that instead. Okay, so in this key signature, what makes it different from C is not only that we're starting on G as our first note, but that we have a black key in the key signature. Okay, that gives it a different personality, a different sound. All right, so here is the key of G. Okay, it still has that major sound that we have back here on C, but it has a different personality, it has a different signature. Okay, because we're starting on a different note and we have that black key in there. Okay, now right there, that opens up quite a few possibilities in terms of improvising, and that's just 2 of the 12 major key signatures. There's 12 minor key signatures as well, not to mention a bunch of other variations. So hopefully that makes sense as far as the C and G major scales are concerned. So far we have covered major scales, C and G. We've talked about the circle of fifths, and in the next video we're going to go more in depth with the circle of fifths, the theory behind it, and we're also going to be getting into minor scales and intervals. If you have any questions about what I discussed in this video, don't hesitate to email me, drop a note on Eastside's Facebook page. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions that you might have, especially if you're new to music or new to improvising. Feel free to do that. If you're already taking lessons with me or are taking lessons from another instructor and are already familiar with your scales, keep working on them. Keep practicing them. They're a vital tool, and we're going to be talking more in depth about how to use scales in a really musical way, because that's the whole purpose, taking all of these concepts and making music out of it. So I hope you'll join me as I get into the second part of improvising, and thanks again for watching, and have a great week.